I had a conversation with former Congressman Lee Hamilton about 2 years ago where we talked about whether or not thinking historically can have an impact on the ability of Congress or other legislative bodies to get along, to work together, comity, in terms of feeling that the work of the legislature is more important than any individual legislator. And Hamilton argued, and I agree with him, that legislators who have a historical sensibility may well be more likely to be task-oriented, to be accomplishment-oriented, than legislators who don't have that kind of sensibility. Now, Hamilton thought that this was because if you have a historical sensibility, you become invested in the institution itself. That an interest in the history of Congress, for example, makes you more invested in the success of Congress as a deliberative institution. You might be able to extend that to saying that a sense of history gives you an understanding of what it takes to make something work and what it has taken in the past, and what the implications are of a failure to work together. What happens when a legislative body, in fact, does not succeed. I also would argue, though, that there's a third aspect of this, which is that one of the things that is part of the one of the ethical principles in history as a discipline, as in other academic disciplines, is the legitimacy of disagreement. That if you look at if you look at even our written ethical principles, we emphasize that interpretive disagreement is built into our discipline and is built into the many professions that constitute that discipline: teaching, being an archivist, working in a museum, being a college professor. There's many places where people do history. And what we emphasize is in all of those places, people are going to look at evidence and disagree about what they draw from that evidence. And that there are certain principles by which we disagree. And what we do agree on is that it's that very disagreement that generates new ideas. And I think one of the things that we're seeing today, we're recording this interview 5 blocks from the Capitol. One of the things that we're seeing today is a breakdown of that set of assumptions. That disagreement, in fact, ought to work towards some kind of higher goal of accomplishment. And I'm not even going to say compromise or agreement, but accomplishment. That as historians, we realize that over time, disagreement has only sometimes made accomplishment impossible. And that's when the breakdowns have been serious. And that's where I think Hamilton really had his finger on something. That legislators who do have a historical sensibility may in fact be more likely to understand that higher goal.